to. Hi, Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang. We've got a jam-packed show. Actually, we don't, but it could be. Do you agree, Brent?
I agree with almost everything you say, Steve, except for I still think Trump is going to win. Sorry, guys.
Nice. What do you? Who? That Frank? What did you say?
I'm just groaning and here's why he might be right. Let's talk about that later after you've introduced everybody. I don't want to jump in again like I always do.
That's a good idea.
Okay, well, let me know when I can continue.
Go ahead, please.
Denis Pombriant, welcome.
Hi, Steve. I think we should all grow a pair and get used to the fact that Biden's going to win.
And Keith Teare, welcome.
Thank you. I don't know why I think we'd need to grow a pair if Trump was going to win. If Biden's going to win, we don't need him.
And finally, Michael Markman.
Hello. Even if Trump loses, we will lead the pair because the battle is not over. This is just a skirmish.
Which one?
Anyone.
What do you mean by skirmish?
This election is a skirmish. The forces that put Trump in are still out there, and they will be pissed.
Boy, won't they?
Okay, so I guess we've covered that.
Yeah, we're all done with that now.
Excellent. So what else? Anybody got any interesting stories?
Stock market.
What about it?
Well, so we've had a couple of bad days here, and today it's looking bad again. And the first thing that my wife and I were just talking about it is, what is Trump going to do in reaction to 2 days of bad numbers in the stock market? What can we expect to happen? Not specifically, but that something will happen because it's inevitable that there will be some need to either try and say something that boosts the stock market or say something that diverts the attention away from the bad numbers on the stock market. And in either case, to me, it's really just sad. And I mean, look at all the stuff that's happened in the last few days, including that ridiculous stuff that Bill Barr said. It doesn't stick. Don really is Teflon. He is the Teflon Don. There's absolutely no doubt about it. That's the reason why Brent may be right. That's what I'm.
Well, I don't think that he is Teflon. He has accumulated a vast number of people who hate him, and. It's just a frozen situation. He has a number of people who don't care what he does, and a number of people who hate him who don't care what he does. So I don't know if that's Teflon or cement.
I don't know. Given a choice between Teflon and cement, I think I might take cement. But I just, it's really disappointing. I'm over here. This is now my third week in the U.S. As we try to put our apartment here on the market and get the heck out. And I just in New York, it's pretty clear who everyone here wants, and the conversations around here pretty much sound like everyone in our group except for Brent. And I just. This is a sad place to be right now. It's sad to be here in New York. It's half the stores are closed. The atmosphere is not New York. It's not the New York I knew 6 months ago. I didn't expect that to be that, but it's just so bad, and it's so crazy that I'm beside myself. As Johnny 6 would say, or Johnny 5, I'm standing beside myself.
Who is that? What reference is that?
That's a movie.
Yeah, by who?
Johnny 5 was a robot.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the movie. So
all right.
No more. We can use airplane references, but no obscure references of movies we can't remember. Anyway, I'm just really disappointed in being here, and actually can't wait to go back to London.
Well, at least you have someplace to go back to, right?
I guess.
If they'll take you.
Yeah, I am wondering, because there's been a real upswing in numbers here in the U.S. and in London. I don't know what that's going to mean
You and your
for me
virus.
going back.
It's 14 days quarantine in both directions, because I've got a flight to London at the end of October, which is looking like it's going to get cancelled. So I like
Really?
14 days quarantine.
Wait a minute.
You know what? You're the second person. I have a friend of mine that just had an October to London. Was that you? No, I don't think it was. That had an October flight canceled.
Wait a minute.
How is
Already?
how is
Why on earth
quarantine
would you-
defined? What
Wait, I want to hear what Brent was trying to say.
Yeah, I just want to. Why on earth are you trying to leave at the end of October? I mean, is there a deadline you're trying to get out of? There's something happening right around that time that you don't want to be in the country for. What's up with that?
No, a work-related meeting that's face-to-face.
Sure it is. Okay, we got you. Yeah.
Yeah, the questions for me, you were asking Michael about what is, or somebody was asking about what is quarantine. To be honest, when you come in, you fill out a form, you get your temperature taken, you hand the form which has your contact information to someone at the quarantine police that are there at the gate when you get off the plane. And then what happens after that really is they will call you over and over again on the phone number that you gave them to make sure that you're quarantining. And but there's no,
So you get
there's
to
really
stay
no way.
You get to stay at the place of your choice. Is what you're saying.
Yes, you do. And honestly, it's not like the quarantine police are going to come to your house and it's up to you
Honor
to
system.
quarantine.
It's the honor system.
Total honor system.
But that's a great sign of how technology is not leveraged, because GPS could pin you down precisely, very precisely. If all they did is put an app on your phone called the quarantine app.
Right.
Yeah, well, if we just
But
had
you know
those
that
numbers on our wrist, it would be, fantastic.
what do you? All
You
you
know
have to
what?
do is all you have to
Are
do
you-
is leave your phone somewhere. I mean, that's not much of a system.
Good point.
On
You
Star
need-
Trek,
once-
I always wondered why people didn't take their communicator badge off. So they
But
couldn't be tracked.
once you have your phone and they have your phone number, if you start walking around with it, they could still conceivably trace you using
Yeah, but you
your phone
don't
number.
leave it behind and get a burner phone. That's all you have to do.
Yes, you could burn a phone, man. Are you in the CIA?
That's
Gillmor-
not a system.
how to undermine
A burner
public
phone.
health.
But they did create an app in the UK, and it really has never worked, and it's never been distributed, a trace and track app, and which I thought they were. Hey, look, they're heading down a good road here with use of technology, and it just seemed to never work, which I can't understand.
It's because they refused to use Apple and Google's phone embedded system. They tried to build their own.
Oh, you mean because we refused to use the overlord's gift to humanity, right?
Oh my God, you sound more and more like William Barr.
The Brits, the Brits are deeply anti-American. You got to understand that. It's a
I can
post-Second
tell.
World War phenomenon. It's known as losing an
Britain.
empire.
We're not anti-American.
No, the Brits are truly deeply anti-American. They are.
Well,
I'm not a Brit yet, so I'm not, and I will be in 6 months. Thing is, when I go back, I have to give my passport back to Her Majesty's Secret Service. They will keep it for 6 months as I go into this next phase of becoming a British citizen. So I won't even be able to travel anywhere, let alone to the EU, which doesn't want Americans in it, or even back to America. I'm stuck for 6 months.
Frank, I have very fond memories of going to the Lake District with my wife on vacation. She was a South African and went through the same process. And so we had to vacation in the UK, which is a struggle at the best of times.
Yeah, that's And my wife being a Brit, she's already planning on going to the south of France without me. So
There you go.
So let's take a break from Travel Corner, and we'll be right back.
anyway, it's the big thing for me this week was William Barr's comments about quarantining being the next best
Well,
thing
I'm
to
with
slavery.
Michael
I just-
Steele. I'm with Michael Steele, who basically says enough of talking about the stupid. So I don't really want to talk about what Bill Barr has to say.
Here, here.
Thank
What Bill Barr had to say
Okay.
about quarantine and slavery is in the stupid category. But when he's
Yeah.
talking about asking his department to look into charges of sedition, that's something that I think we need to talk about, both for protesters and for people like the mayor of Seattle. That crosses over from stupid to evil.
Oh, absolutely.
Is sedition like one notch away from treason?
Well, sedition, treason is giving aid and comfort to an enemy. Sedition is plotting to overthrow our government. You don't have to be doing it on behalf of a foreign enemy, but if you want to overthrow the U.S. government and institute a new one here, that's sedition.
It sounds like everything that Trump says lately, as he ratchets up, sounds like that's the argument he's setting up.
Yes, more and more. And the other thing I'm worried about is his cadre of brown shirts, his private militia. As of now, mainly they're just marching around with their guns and riding through towns with trucks, but occasionally they fire shots. I don't know where that's going.
What about this whole TikTok Oracle thing in Walmart now too, and it all kind of hinges on whether this guy says it can go through or not. I mean, let's let aside the actual corporate entities, the fact that this guy, 45, has to give his permission in order for anything to actually happen. That's kind of messed up, isn't it? Well, and then I guess on the Chinese side, they have to approve it as well. So you got these
They've already said that they're going to ban. I think it's on Sunday, unless the deal is struck between Oracle and TikTok. I suppose that's the only way that it then doesn't get banned. I'm not quite sure.
No, as I understand it, what will be banned is downloading.
I just want to hear some facts before we get into the opinion.
I was supplying some facts. What will be banned is downloading the TikTok app. So it's essentially frozen if you have it. You don't get any updates. And if you don't have it, you can't get it. So you better, if you want it, you better get it now. But the other app they're talking about, which is WeChat, is actually going to be banned.
On whose authority is the TikTok app not downloaded until Sunday?
No, that I don't know.
Okay, so
but we all know who's behind the order for that.
Well, is it a legal authority, and will the people who run app stores follow it? That'll be interesting to see. Is Apple and Google going to shut down downloads? Stay tuned.
Well, if you go up a layer, this is the government dictating what can and cannot be published, the thing that they're dictating is not illegal in any way. I do believe that it will be possible for them to block downloads just by having Apple and Google pull it from the App Store, and if they can force them to do that. But I do not believe they will be able to stop those who already have the app getting additional content. That they will not be able to stop that. That's too complicated. They have to get into the internet deeply to stop that.
But can we just take one step back and why is this even all happening? It's because the dude that's in the current resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue got mad because he feels he got duped by a bunch of kids on TikTok who led him to believe by saying that they were all getting tickets to come to this event in, I think it was Oklahoma. So he was
Okay.
thinking, well, we got like a million people have signed up for this. It's going to be a huge thing. And then he gets there and there's like maybe 6,000. And then the kids on TikTok start laughing at him and saying, yeah, we played you. And this is what happened leading up to this decision. It was all because he got played, and he does not like getting played, that he's doing all this
Yeah,
stuff. That's
So,
really
yeah,
scary to me.
So even you take that even back a few years and add the correspondence dinner
Oh, yeah.
with Barack
That's
Obama
true.
making fun of him. It seems to me like everyone's certainly in somewhat agreement that was the ultimate moment of his
No,
going after.
the ultimate moment was the United States voting him into office.
Yeah.
The correspondence dinner may have been a trigger, but it wasn't the first time he talked about running for office or even made moves to run for office. This has been something he's been working on and thinking about, and people have been working with him to bring about since the 80s.
That's
Yeah,
true.
but that is true. But I do think that moment though created such a sense of hatred between him or from him towards Obama that he has been unable to let it go. I mean, clearly there's been conversations back as far as I think 2011, 2013.
Yeah, he started the birtherism stuff before the correspondence dinner, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, modern children have been taught at school to say, you hurt my feelings. And then the person who hurt their feelings says, I'm sorry, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. And Trump clearly never went through the learning to articulate his pain phase. So he becomes a victim and wants revenge. That's his whole personality.
Yeah, but
right?
Obama wanted to hurt his feelings.
It's okay. Then you
That's
still...
That was,
the
revenge.
playground bully wants to do that too.
Yeah.
Dennis, I couldn't hear you.
That was revenge for birtherism. But I think what you're watching, what you're talking about is that Trump can't remember that event and many other events in his life without reliving them. He has PTSD from a lot of stuff that he went through with his dad and most recently in public with Obama. So you've got a very fragile ego in the White House trying to protect himself, and so he's lashing out, I think, rather ineffectively against TikTok and WeChat because he can't do anything else. He's doing what he can control, and it shows that he's a very limited individual.
I also think that this spate of books has to be creating an even deeper divide between him and his own psyche right now too, especially the Woodward book, which I've just started listening to, and the stuff that I'm hearing in there. There's a lot more in there than what's been reported, and I'm looking forward to hearing those things, because I think that Bob Woodward is clearly one of the best journalists alive today, and I respect the way his work process and the way he gathers information. The fact that he has it all on audio tape is going to be a real problem for Trump.
Already is.
Well, I've been reading the Woodward book, and I have to say I have mixed feelings about it. He certainly gets people to talk, and he certainly records the chronology of meetings and tries to reconstruct the dialogue in the meetings as people recall it. But I don't think I'm learning anything new about Trump that I didn't already know. The big revelation is that, yes, he actually did understand that the virus could infect children. He did understand that it was airborne transmission. He wasn't being stupid about that. But almost everything else in the Woodward book is something that you already knew. You just didn't have the words. But you knew about the temper, you knew about the vengeance, you knew about his fixed ideas about NATO and his fixed ideas about immigration. You knew that people struggled to play the role of adult in the room for as long as they could, and then they left. So we're just getting a little corroborative detail. We're not getting any new insights, are we?
Well, Michael, I think the thing that we're getting is that the Woodward book strips away plausible deniability from Trump. until you heard in his own words a lot of the things that Woodward said, and I haven't read the book, I've just listened to the audio, which is unusual for me. Until that happened, until you heard his voice, you could always say he didn't know, or he really believes chloroquine works, or he did this or did that. Now you can't. What is exposed is that he was a liar. He's always been a liar, and there goes the plausible deniability. There's about 35 to 45% of America that doesn't care. And I saw an interesting T-shirt on MSNBC today that said, "If you don't like Trump, you're not going to like me." Those people are so wedded to the Trump ego that you're not going to convince them of anything. And what this election comes down to is the Democrats plus the persuadables should equal enough to remove Trump from office. But I think whoever said it earlier, maybe it was you, Michael, that this is the warm-up act. There's potential for a lot of trouble later on after Trump loses.
Something that several of my friends on Facebook have posted resonates with me, which is to say the people who are with Trump aren't with him because of what he does for them. It's because he represents vengeance and action against their enemies. I mean, they're allied with Trump against us. They're really not in support of Trump, but they view him as a champion against the liberals, a champion against the blacks, against the Mexicans. Whoever they hate, Trump is their champion, and that's what keeps them with him. They don't necessarily approve of him, of his life, of his morals, of his lying, of anything that he does. Right. They just love having a champion to go to battle against.
So is that the thing that's the thing that makes me worried about our country and the imbalance and the indifference and all of that? That's what makes me worried.
Absolutely.
More than anything else. And it's uncomfortable. And now it's probably less uncomfortable here in New York than in New York City than it is in the rest of New York, which honestly, there's an awful lot of pro-Trumpers in New York. It's a big state. And as you go around, there are a lot of pro-Trumpers everywhere. And let's pause it for a second that he loses and that the Senate flips. What are those people who have been for him because they represent their hatred of us? What are they going to do?
You know, I don't understand why. Sorry, Keith, I'll give it to you in a second. I just don't understand why people, like on this call, for example, say with a great deal of clarity that he's going to lose, you know, Brent accepted. And at the same time, they seem to be more worried about what happens if he loses than if he wins. I mean, I
never said that. I'm more worried if he wins, but I don't stop worrying if he loses.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Michael. I think it's, Steve, I'm not sure that that's how those of us who you are talking about feel exactly. It's just something that I am worried about, but I'm, I think that everything works out for the better.
Oh, you do?
If
based on
if Biden wins. If Biden wins.
I'm a bit different. I think that if you were to try to unpack what Trump represents, that phrase, hatred of us, is an interesting phrase. I also think hatred of DC and the political establishment is part of it. There's some valid parts to it. DC is dysfunctional. And his ability to articulate a revolution against DC was very similar to what Obama did in the previous election, where he said, I'm going there not to become part of it, which is why I need you guys to keep being behind me when I get there. Otherwise, I they'll suck me in, I will become part of it. So there's that valid hatred of DC and its dysfunctionalness and its self-servingness. The politicians in quotes, are not perceived as a good thing. And then hatred of us, by which I assume we mean like the middle class intelligentsia, the liberals. Well, we, and I don't include myself or anyone on this call in this, but we have become kind of zealots for a point of view, trying to ban others, and others are often described as, as Hillary described them. What was it? Not a measure.
The basket of deplorables.
Yeah, deplorables.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of valid feelings that Trump supporters have that are not wrong.
Yeah, but the bottom line here is that the virus trumps all of that, pardon the expression, and this is about whether, which is worse, what you just said, or 200,000 dead, or dead.
Steve, there's a guy on the chat who's watching us in the on Facebook who said they hate us more than they love him, and this election is different than any other. One side will not accept the results, and I think that this is an interesting comment. What are you all going to do if he does win? That is us, the Gillmor gang. I think we go back to tech.
Well, I'm looking forward to the election being over.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, I think that's going to cut down on the acceleration of death. It's going to cut down on the inability to be able to square up and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Masks in the short term. I think that the mask argument goes away the second that Trump is either elected or not elected. So I think that's a very positive development. And what I was trying to push back on before is this notion that we're seriously afraid of Trump not accepting the results of the election. I certainly think that's what he's going to do, regardless of whether he wins or loses. But the bottom line is that I just don't think that we're going to see something as overt as a coup in the United States. I just don't buy it.
I don't think that. I agree with that. I don't think we're going to see a coup in the United States. I think we'll see pockets of violence, though. I cannot imagine that we won't.
We are seeing pockets of violence.
Yes, we are.
We'll get bigger pockets. We'll get bigger pockets.
Yeah.
We'll get more pockets.
And it'll be bigger pockets, and it'll be maybe more violent. I just don't see how that doesn't happen. It just feels like that.
So what are we talking about?
I don't know. We don't know. Some of the people who wave guns just are waving guns. Some people who wave guns would like to use guns. I don't know how many of each there are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, Michael, doesn't that tell you that, and the word "we" is a difficult word here, but shouldn't we be in a dialogue with them?
Yes, we should. But them is not a monolith. That's part of the problem. If you unpack all of the things that you laid out about anti-DC and anti-intellectual and anti-minority, they're really different universes. The anti-DC is what brought Jimmy Carter into office. It's what brought Bill Clinton into office. It's what brought Obama into office. It works and it works again. Even
the well-known
George W. Bush, who was the son of a president, ran as an outsider.
Yeah, but you end up. I don't know how familiar you all are with in English history. There's this whole narrative around the fear of the mob. The mob is a word used for the unmentionables, or whatever they're called. It basically is when the intellectual elite separate themselves from the masses and become an elite in the bad sense of the word, looking down on the masses. That would seem to me to be a really bad end point if that's where it ends up.
Well, that
sounds like the Republican Senate.
I think that's happened to a large extent, to a larger extent than most people are willing to acknowledge yet. And the book that I think is much more insightful than the Woodward book is the one by Kurt Anderson, Evil Geniuses, because he really takes a look at the big picture of how the U.S. has changed since the 30s and Roosevelt to now. When did the Roosevelt coalition, the pro-union progressive coalition, start to run out of steam? And what did the right wing do to build an opposition to that over decades? And the most telling part of his thesis is the role that the so-called liberal intelligentsia played in aiding and abetting that shift. I think you're right. We did abandon unions. We did abandon what we called flyover country. They do have legitimate resentments, and we have some culpability in that. And I do think we need to talk to people. But if you look at the other side, even Hillary Clinton, when she used that phrase, basket of deplorables, she said maybe up to half of his supporters belong in the basket of deplorables. She never tried to say that all of Trump's supporters were deplorables. He built a coalition of his own. Some of it are old line Federalist Society, right wing, pro corporate people. McGahn, who was his White House counsel, came into the White House with a mission, which was to try and bring as many Federalist Society lawyers onto the bench as possible in the shortest possible time. That was his agenda. He was not a fan of Trump. He used Trump's popularity to get something done, which they have been trying to get done since the 80s.
Which, by the way, they haven't been able to really accomplish even during the Trump administration. They have not filled all of those judgeships that are available.
But they have churned through at least 200 of them.
Yeah.
But it feels to me as if Biden is charting a fairly decent course through this minefield, in that he is not becoming the illiberal liberal. He's not kind of become a preacher in the pulpit telling people what to think. He represents a good future without penalizing those who disagree with chastisement. But many people who are liberal are becoming illiberal liberals and are trying to close down this whole cancel culture.
What does that word illiberal actually mean?
Illiberal means that you try to close down points of view without debating them.
Is that cancel culture?
It's part of it. Cancel culture is a more extreme version of it.
So why do we keep hearing that word? Steve Schmidt says that every 40 seconds.
Because it's real. There's an intolerance of conservative points of view.
Well,
there's
I don't know about that.
I don't know if it's an intolerance of conservative points of view or of certain expressions of conservative points of view, because part of what has happened on the right is that they have become illiberal conservatives. There were intellectually honest conservatives who maintained a point of view, and then there were the people who fell in line behind Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, and they are not. They're not playing on a level field. They're doing whatever they can to manipulate people, and you don't win any arguments with them, no matter how good your counterfactual arguments are, because they're not in the game for argument. They're not in the game to discover truth. They're in the game to foment the people that they consider their allies. And it's very hard to have that conversation. We're starting to be able to have that conversation with the Republicans and conservatives who have broken away from Trump and are working to help elect Biden. They become the people that you might be able to have a conversation with.
And that's another point, is that the idea of argument not necessarily having a negative connotation, but that argument is discussion, an argument is debate, an argument is not necessarily something that's bad, and a lot of people are looking at argument and arguing with the right in a very negative way. I think there is there's got to be some central ground here that people can navigate towards and try and make things a little better. But you know what? There is only one Mitt Romney.
Well, there's always zealotry on the extreme wings of all political spectrums. There's zealotry and people who don't listen. But history is usually not made by those people.
Dennis, what were you trying to say?
This is kind of long, but I think it's useful right around here. As you know, I mentioned before, over the summer I read Richard Hofstadter's 1962 book, Anti-Intellectualism in America. And as I'm listening to you, it occurs to me that there are really two kinds of conservatism in America, and we're only really recognizing one of them. Hofstadter posited that the nation was founded by Puritans, and they had a conservatism that was based on learning and fact. Puritan ministers used to write out their sermons in longhand. That's why we have them today, bound and you can research them. In the Great Awakening, the frontier basically rebelled against that, and most of the people on the frontier were illiterate, and they were served religiously by itinerant preachers from the Baptist and the Methodist persuasions, and many of them were illiterate, or they only knew the Bible, and they preached the Bible as they saw it. And very early in American history, we developed this bifurcation where the Baptists and the Methodists became highly dogmatic. The Puritans retained an open-mindedness toward fact, but they both had their own kind of conservatism, and you only have to read the Scarlet Letter to know that. Fast forward a couple hundred years, that's ingrained in the culture, and so what you've got is a culture in a lot of places that were settled by Baptists and Methodists, who a culture that is dogmatic and doesn't admit to some of the things that we in the Northeast, for example, we descendants of Puritans take for granted. As Frank was talking about, we have arguments, but they're based on facts, and people are persuadable. And at the end of the argument, the person with the best, most convincing argument doesn't win, but hopefully persuades the other person. That's not happening in the other parts of the country. And I think in order to change the dynamic, and this goes in a cyclical manner. Arthur Schlesinger Sr. was a historian at Harvard in the early part of the 20th century, and pointed out that there's a 60-year oscillation in American life from very conservative to liberal. And I think it's important to look at where we are now as a point in that oscillation. And we're not all the way over to the far right. We're beginning to swing back. And so, I don't know the right answer, but I think part of the right answer is asking, how do we engage with each other? How do we do a better job of communicating?
I think you'll find people will say that, and when you attempt to communicate, because
Can you repeat what you just said? You're breaking up, Frank.
Yes, he's attempting to communicate. I think he's frozen, actually.
Yeah, all right.
He's gone into a meditative state.
We'll try to get Mike back.
This is a good point for someone to put in a URL to the Monty Python Argument Clinic sketch.
Yes.
As a Lutheran, I can confirm he has indeed frozen.
Wow.
He just looks so peaceful. I don't think we should try to disturb him right now.
It does look like a very peaceful meditation.
But what
If we
Dennis
could
said,
hear him, he would be saying Om.
what Dennis said is really interesting. And when I learned my English history, I learned about Methodism being the underlying ideology of the Labour Party, not socialism, actually. The Good Samaritan is the core of Labour Party ideology. And conservatism in England is Protestantism, but very, very pragmatic, because it used to be Catholicism, Henry VIII and all that, for a period of time. So pragmatic Protestantism versus dogmatic Methodism. So there is a parallel there.
Okay, but I was appreciating Denis getting fast forwarding 200 years.
Yeah.
Could you do that too?
Well,
No, I don't want to talk about England. So here, I don't think that I think Denis's narrative is a great narrative to understand the Republican Party, but I think Trump's Republican Party, you have to bring in a new phenomenon, which is an economically disadvantaged white working class, predominantly male, predominantly not going to college, who quite genuinely are the losers in the current period of history that the US economy is going through. And the anxieties, fears, and resentments that being economic losers has created in them, especially susceptibility to racism. These are really important, real things that the Democratic Party hasn't really found a way to have a dialogue with, because it doesn't have a positive economic vision.
I don't think you have a dialogue. I think the answer is that you persuade people through their bellies. There are a lot of hungry people out there, people who are housing insecure, nutritionally insecure, insecure for a variety of reasons, and a lot of them didn't go to college. We saw in the 1930s perhaps the greatest sea change in American life, where we went from a fairly staunch republicanism to a New Dealism that infused the economy with jobs and with money. And I think we're at a point right now where we need to do this, and not to try to sell you any books, but my last book talked about how you do that with what's essentially the Green New Deal. I'm not a fan of the Green New Deal because it's monolithic, but I think the crux of our problem is that economic prosperity has gone to the top 1%. We haven't shared economic prosperity down to the point of just providing decent jobs for people. And I think with an attitude and attention toward saving the climate, we can generate millions of jobs that will begin to reverse that process.
Brent, you're going to have to hang on a second. I just need to housekeeping here. Brent, you are off to your other show in about 5 minutes. So I'm not sure you have anything to weigh in here about, but if you do, can you do it now?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like we make too much, or we complicate things that really I don't think are all that complicated. There's a group of people that have always been at the top. It's a small group of people, and there's a much bigger group of people that are at the bottom, and some folks in the midsection. Some of the white folks that are not at the top, some for some reason, and kind of economically closer to the black folks and the people of color at the bottom, they don't vote their financial interests all the time. They vote like the guys up top, and that's the group I always question. Like in the perfect kind of use case for this is Trump. Trump is not a man of the people. He's not a guy that pulled himself up by his bootstraps. If anybody is in this horse race, it's Biden.
Who was it that said the problem is that America has no poor, just a bunch of temporarily disadvantaged millionaires?
I remember that, yeah.
I mean,
I don't remember who said it.
there is this sense in our founding ideology that anyone can rise to the top.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't seem to be the case, but a lot of people
It's
believe
not
it.
the case. It's the dream of that, but it's never been the case. It's always been, the 1% or the 2% that have everything. And why would they want to change anything? But there's these folks that are at the bottom, and I think they're black and white, but for some reason the white folks at the bottom want to feel like they're with the guys at the top, so they vote kind of with the guys at the top, although they don't get the benefits of the guys at the top.
There's a
But they make
cartoon.
it-
There's a cartoon going around
Better
that
than-
has three guys at a table. There's a very rich guy sitting opposite us with a giant plate of cookies, and there's a black guy on one side with one cookie on his plate, and there's a white guy on the other side with maybe two cookies on his plate, and the rich guy is talking to the white guy and saying, he's trying to steal your cookie.
Yeah, that kind of good. That's a good sum up, because if they were voting for their actual, financial benefits or their financial kind of
Interests.
interest, that's right, interest, they would
But
probably be more aligned with the masses that are at the bottom than the 1% that are holding the purse string.
They absolutely should. They absolutely should. But the thing that's easy to trigger is the emotion that the government is going to help that black guy out and not help me. And it's not fair for the black guy to get anything because I don't get anything.
But in both cases, that is a kind of serf mentality where somebody's got to look after me. What you really need is the decision to look after yourself. And if that decision was made, there'd be a revolution. Never mind alignment. If poor whites ever made the decision that they can only trust themselves, there'd be a revolution, and those guns would be turned on the government.
I think that's a really the point that you made there, Brent, about how the poor whites are voting with the top 1% of whites is a very interesting point, and because that can turn the election.
So what Brent has basically been saying for weeks that he thinks that Trump is going to win. Now, when he says that, I always hear he's afraid that Trump's going to win. It's less a prediction than a concern, which I share, by the way. So since we got about 30 seconds with Brent left here, Brent, there's been a lot of data every day, some of it in the Telegram stream, which we'll give a link for at the end of the show, that Biden's in a pretty good position. So, with 10 seconds left, do you really think that Trump's going to win?
Nothing's changed in my mind yet.
What is it fearful of? The votes or the shenanigans?
It actually both. I mean, I still think there's a chunk of people who will vote against their interests, their financial interests, because they feel like Trump is speaking for them from their kind of their heart, not their head. And that's just been the way.
COVID upends that calculus.
Nah, not yet. Maybe it will, but I'm not seeing that yet. I'm not feeling that yet.
I've heard some interviews with people in the Rust Belt. See you, Brent.
Hi, Brent.
I've heard some interviews on television with people from coal states and from steel states and from railroad states and Rust Belt states and things like that, who are still very much in favor of Trump, who made all of these promises that none of which have come to fruition. I mean, the steel industry is not back. The coal industry is not back. You don't clean coal by washing it. All of these things. Yet there is still a very strong point of view pro-Trump. And I think, Steve, you hit the nail on the head, though, when you said, I think you're right. That's how I feel. I'm afraid that Trump's going to win.
So this is where the media punts to the debates. How many of you saw the ABC News town hall with Trump?
I just saw some clips.
I saw some of it.
So I saw the whole thing because we recorded it, and I was struck with real foreboding about this, in the sense that if Biden wasn't watching, his team better be watching, because even though Trump was lying and doing his shtick, from a consistency perspective, he looked calm and he looked organized and he looked like he knew what he was doing. And I think that's profoundly disruptive of the notion that he's going to lose.
Except that he was being queried by regular people instead of professional journalists.
And I think regular people have a big advantage over professional journalists, because Trump couldn't use his go-to card, which is, you're a bad reporter, that's a stupid question, you're a nasty person. He couldn't say that to the voters.
He couldn't.
He had to.
Good point.
You can't do that in a debate. It's just him and the camera.
No, actually, in debates, there's a moderator, and he can play that. He can't play that to Biden, but he can certainly play that to the moderator, and to some extent, he'll play it to Biden too.
No, Trump. I think
except for the second debate, which is a town hall format.
Right.
I think whenever I listen to Trump for any period of time, even when he's at his worst, he isn't as bad as the media makes him out to be. I think Steve's comment actually is quite normal. He has an internal coherence, even though he's lying and making facts up. And I think it's a caste. It's more, America no longer has a class system; it has a caste system. There's us and them, and that relates to which caste you think you belong to. It's identity politics. And what Trump has created is a 35% identity that is a caste, and internally coherent in their own terms. And the only good news is no one outside the caste will see anything other than lies and misstatements of fact and conniving and so on. So the caste is limited to 35%. So it all really depends on what happens with the other 65%.
Well, this is my way, Frank, just so you understand, which I think you do. This is my way of talking about the media crisis, and if there's going to be any impact in the next 2 weeks, which is really the election basically will start about 5 minutes after the first debate with early voting. So
it actually started this morning.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, that whether or not everybody but the Trump supporters go to the polls or not is really the dynamic of the election. And it's going to start based on what about the media? What's going on with the media right now, Frank?
I think the media is struggling to try and figure out how it is that they report this story. And I think that that the other struggle is that how do you reach the people who are unreachable? That is that is the people who are consistently watching the right-wing media and not sampling other media. How do you get those stories into their laps? I think that is a huge struggle, and I don't have an answer to that. I don't think that the media has an answer to that, because from my perspective, it looks like everyone is just moving forward the way that they have always moved forward and not trying to actually get that message over to the other. I hate to say the other side, but it's the other side. And I don't know how they do that. I don't think they can do that.
The secret, Frank, the secret is in memes and viral marketing. Basically, people's opinions only change if there's a verbal virus that runs through society that they hear all the time.
Or see.
And those memes are usually passed word of mouth. So if there's two camps that never meet and talk, that can't happen. It
You
can
know,
only hap-
I don't think, I think you're right, but I don't think that the liberal media, the left-wing media, has gotten a real understanding of that the way that the right-wing media has. I think that they actually are doing a better job in that regard.
well, they have failed. There's two. Let me just say this, Dennis, and I'll shut up. There's two failed memes. Failed meme number one is Trump's a liar, and failed meme number two is he stole the election. Because who gives a shit? No one gives a shit about those two things. There is no positive meme about the need for change other than possibly the virus. But I'm not even convinced that meme works, frankly. So the left has not got a viral meme.
Well, I think they might have, and that's about Biden, which is that he cares. The meme about Trump that I think everyone can see is he doesn't care about anyone but himself. He is absolutely incapable of expressing any compassion, any feeling at all for people who've been lost or hurt or wounded, people who have suffered in storms, people who have suffered in fires, people who have been lost in the disease. Trump is just incapable of embracing anyone's pain and saying, "I hear that."
I think that he called
that is Biden's brand. His brand is he listens, he cares, he has suffered loss himself, and he recognizes pain in others.
So one of the people online is saying, why don't the media sacrifice themselves and call him out at these press conferences? It would be worth it to get thrown out. That's an interesting
that's the same kind of question that people keep asking about why don't the Republicans break before they are broken. They're not going to break.
No.
Okay.
And the media is not going to do that either. So although there's been a couple of times in press conferences of late where there's been some real pushback. Dennis, I'm sorry that you got interrupted when you were obviously going to argue with me about what I was saying.
Well, that wasn't obvious, but go ahead, Dennis.
All I wanted to say was that I didn't think it was the media's job to be missionary. I think what we're looking at is an imbalance where one media outlet, Fox, has put its thumb on the scale and become a propaganda arm of the Republican Party. But it doesn't mean that's what media should be doing. And I think the media is behaving rather responsibly and doing its job. Its job is to present you, is to research and present you the news, not to convince you of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I hate to even think that I'm starting to feel in any way differently about it. But it's kind of like going to a gunfight with a knife.
But the audience is already divided. I don't think the theory of the case is that you change the minds of the Fox viewers.
That's right.
The theory of the case is you ignore the Fox viewers and change every available mind that you can get. Everything else is a waste of energy, time, and money.
I mean, that's changing minds without actually making presenting a point of view. It's changing minds by presenting facts and information.
Right, and
facts and information don't matter.
I disagree. I disagree. I think that the most important meme, if you want to call it that, that I've seen in the last few weeks is the comment that Trump made about herd mentality.
Yes.
Yeah, but forget the joke part of it. Basically, there was a significant uptake in the media about the fact that what he was basically suggesting was Sweden. And, pardon me, Keith, I don't want to monologue about this. At this point, that's a recipe for, maybe 400,000 dead.
No, it's a recipe for 2 million dead.
Yeah, I understand.
We're already going to we're getting to $400,000 without her.
That doesn't take into account the fact that the media is going to be saying 2.5 million, and it's going to ratchet it down, and it's going to end up being 400,000. That's what I'm saying. So the
I don't know,
media
what do you
is
mean?
intercepting. The media is intercepting some key facts. If Trump's administration is allowed to go the Scott Atlas route and basically stonewall to the point where masks continue to be undermined, and before the election, there's no responsible understanding of how much that's going to translate into immediate death, then Trump might win the election. And I think that what we're seeing here is, I disagree with the notion that that the virus is not implicitly fundamental to who's going to win the election. I think that the media is getting that message out, and they're suggesting in the tone of their questions to even Fauci that, yeah, we understand that you're tap dancing on the edge of this to avoid getting fired, but I'd rather you got fired in the next few weeks, because after the election there's still going to be 2.5 months where these guys can wreak real havoc in the country. I think that that's framing the decision around the virus, and I think that it right now is the only reason that Trump might lose.
The thing is, there's no chance that the US could, even if Trump wants it, do the Sweden model, because the US doesn't have the ability to have a national strategy. It's every state for itself, every city for itself.
That's the good thing about divided government. But does anybody else have a reaction to the framing that I'm making about the media? I think they're giving direct information about this. They come right up to it, and they wander off into the various daily Bill Barr crap. And at the end of the day, what they're really saying is, this is the line. If you want to pay attention to this, pay attention to this. And
there's two levels of information there. There's information about what is your best strategy, what is your community's best strategy. That's public health information. And then there's information about Trump and what he's doing. And I don't know which one you're talking about, because I think
I'm not talking about Trump.
In my community where I go, the message to wear a mask is out. I very rarely see anyone in a public place without a mask.
Well, that's going to affect your community in a positive way betwing now and the election. The question is,
what is Trump doing? There's one set of information is how to behave. Should you wear a mask? Should you wear other people wear a mask? But the other category of information is what is Trump up to? And I think the media is pretty consistently putting out good public health information and bringing in good experts and putting out a good message that is not Trump's message. Yeah. I don't know how well they're characterizing what Trump is up to.
No, look, just tell that to the people in Sturgis. You take a look at Sturgis, take a look at New York. Everyone here wears a mask. No one there wore a mask.
Right.
Even Trump doesn't consistently give the Trump speech. Trump is afraid of fully going down the Sweden path, which is obviously where he'd like to go, but he can't. He keeps
after November 3rd.
Say it again.
Until after November 3rd. After November 3rd, you can start speaking Swedish.
Well, at least for now, he is trying to walk the tightrope between the Sweden approach and the rational approach. He keeps zigzagging. If he really wanted to go all the way on the Sweden approach and try to force it to happen nationally, I don't know what would happen. But
here's the fallacy with that. The fallacy with that is Trump does not care about what is the most effective way to handle the virus. That's not in his calculation at all. He's not trying to go by masks or vaccines or tweeting. He's just trying to get to the election. And Trump's problem is that he has energized a group of people to oppose masks. And now he's trapped. He can't change his mind. He has to play the game that he dealt himself. That's the hand he dealt himself.
He had a possibility, and I just heard this morning, that the post office was prepared to have a national strategy to send everyone with an address a package of masks.
We're going to send,
and then,
yeah.
And I mean, that would have, to a certain extent, that's a national strategy. That was immediately killed. With the assumption that it was killed by the administration for fear that the package of masks would create a panic. So it's the second time he's used that as a reason to not do the right thing. That was an opportunity to actually do something in a national way.
Okay, here we go. Wrapping this up, I want everybody to vote up or down. Who's going to win the election, starting with Denis?
Joe Biden.
Steve Gillmor. Joe Biden. Michael Markman.
Biden. Biden-Harris, I should say.
Pete's here.
Landslide Biden.
Landslide is not a correct answer, so you forfeit your answer.
No.
Don't worry, Frank.
You didn't ask me.
Arbiter. I'm teeing you up as the arbiter of all reality. Frank Radice.
I'm afraid Trump's going to win.
But I don't care what you're afraid. Do you think he's going to win? Are you
No.
voting for Trump?
No. Thank you very much, everybody. Please tip the waiters.
Yeah. We'll be here all month, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts? Dennis,
Dennis is
of
not
course.
here, so-
I already voted.
Yeah, that's
No,
what I thought.
I mean, Brent.
You mean Brent? Yes. Well, we know what Brent thinks.
We know what Brent's going to say.
Okay. Any last thoughts that you want to get in before we shut this one down?
I have an interesting boundary. All of Trump's behavior up till November 3rd is going to be based on trying to win. On November 3rd and for some time thereafter, his activities is all going to be based on trying to invalidate Biden's win. But at some point, the inevitable will settle in. And then we have to ask ourselves, what is Trump's behavior in the remaining time that he has? I think it's just to stuff as much loot as possible into his suitcase, because I think he runs out of options.
Well, I think that Nuremberg starts to come into play.
Oh, man.
Well, that's
I'm
what
just saying that, people are going to have to make a decision, particularly in the military, whether they're going to play along with his, end game.
I don't think the military will.
I don't either.
No, I don't think so either. I think that the issue there becomes what the states do. What is the Southern District of New York do? What is Washington, the courts in Washington do? Those are the, I think that's,
I don't think that's even remotely meaningful. There's not enough time.
Well, certainly to him it is.
January 20th obviates all of that stuff.
Can Trump the president pardon Trump the civilian?
No.
Well, I think there's been some questions about that, hasn't there, Dennis? That's something that's still being talked about.
I'm okay with him. I'm okay with him pardoning himself, just as long as he gets out of office.
And that's just the federal thing anyway. I mean, it's his legal problems are state problems, aren't they?
Well, they're both, but yes. So he can only pardon himself for federal, if he can pardon himself, or if he can resign and let Pence pardon him. It's only for federal crimes. The state crimes are in a whole other universe.
Dennis?
Self-pardoning violates Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which basically says that you can't be in two places at one time. You can't be both president and civilian.
Yeah, there's that reference.
Squeeze the weed.
Crush the dwarf.
Clem.
I don't know what you meant, but that's what I think.
All right. I want to thank our producer and director and chief arbiter of what gets actually on the air, Tina Chase Gillmor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank Brent, who's off in his wonderful Playas world. I want to thank Denis Pombriant for a trip down memory lane into the 18th century, I think it was. I want to, and back, thank God. I want to thank Michael Markman. You are astute. I love your bookshelf. It looks like it's prefab.
It's actually a Warner Brothers cartoon background.
Denis,
I notice everybody puts bookshelves up for
I
their home.
recognize it from Tom and Jerry.
Keith here, thank you for your arbitrary references to English history that no comment. And an astute observation of the interior dynamics of this situation. And Frank Radice, you hold no peers.
Thank you. You know what? I want to add a thank you to the people who have been sending in these notes on the watch party because there's an awful lot of interesting stuff in there. I would like to bring more of that into our conversations as we move forward because it's valuable stuff.
As I've advised, open the mouth and speak the words, and then it's in the show. And we'll do better in terms of the back channel. That's why I encourage, and the super will now appear on the TechCrunch version of this show that tells you how to go sign up for the Gillmor Gang back channel on Telegram. So thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you very much, all. Thank you.
Good stuff.